Welcome to MySQL. This is the MySQL installation video, and it's part of your introduction to MySQL. Be sure and feel free to pause and move back and forth throughout the entire video to help with getting your installation set up. First, we're going to go to your browser and type in MySQL, mysql.com. That takes you to this window. Next, click on the Downloads tab at the top of the screen. Notice that it takes you to the MySQL installer, which includes several choices. For this course, choose the free MySQL Community Edition. I will be installing the MySQL Community Server, so choose that version. You can see that there is quite a bit of information here, and basically you will want to make sure that you have selected the correct platform. As you can see in the drop-down, MySQL can be installed on many platforms. I will be installing this product on my Windows 7 machine, which it selects automatically for most platforms. There may be more than one installer listed. I will pick the MySQL Installer 5.6 for Windows. When you click the download button, it will ask you to set up a profile, but you may do so later to use all the benefits of the website. You can use any email address. You are not required to use your campus email account. Go ahead and click No Thanks, and the download window will allow you to save your installation file. The download is going to take a few minutes, maybe 2 minutes, so while it's downloading right now, I'm going to go up to the top of the screen for a moment and show you the Documentation tab. That's a really nice place to start looking at MySQL. Click the View button for the MySQL 5.6 reference manual to open the online manual. It includes a navigation pane on the right with all of the topics available. I'll show you the Appendix B errors and error codes, some of which you will need for the course. Plus there's a tutorial, and it's extremely useful. For instance, this is a tutorial for connecting to and disconnecting from the server. By clicking here, you can become familiar with the MySQL Workbench. Here is the documentation for general information. Again, this is an awesome reference tool, and it will help you supplement your course materials throughout the course. Let's go back up and check and see how our download is doing. It looks like it's almost finished. In my case, I have a virus protection scan that's going to do a security scan for me, and it's approved. So now I can run it. When you click the Run button, you're going to get the normal Microsoft installation windows that you get with just about any install. Now it's unpackaging information and gathering all your information so it knows exactly what to do. Eventually, it's going to come up with a screen that allows you to do the actual installation. On this installation screen, you're going to see a standard license. This is free software, so simply accept the licensing terms and go to the next page. Now you'll see that the developer default is automatically selected. This installs just about every tool and everything you need to use to manage MySQL. Click on your next button and it will review your system requirements. These are very important prerequisites that it looks for automatically. Pay attention to these and take care of downloading and installing whatever MySQL flags as missing. Since mine is a new computer, I will need to install Visual Studio and Python. Otherwise, MySQL just won't work. Of course, you may have different results, but if you also need to install Visual Studio, cancel your MySQL installation, and let's go to your browser and locate a free version of Visual Studio. We'll type in Visual Studio to search, and there's the official site. We'll go to the Visual Studio page and click Downloads. Under Downloads, click Visual Studio Downloads, which will give you this page. You are going to pick out the one that is listed for the Express tab, and then locate Visual Studio Express with Update 3 for Windows Desktop. Click on the Install at the very bottom, and it is Visual Studio Express 2013 with Update 3 for Windows Desktop. This will take a few minutes to download, and you'll just let it continue on through and go ahead and open it. Do not save it so that it can install. Agree to the license terms. You don't necessarily have to join the Visual Studio Experience Improvement Program, so you can skip that if you wish. And continue on. The install takes a few minutes. I've shortened the actual time for this video, but eventually you'll come up to the launch window. You'll launch Visual Studio to make sure it works. You do not have to sign in, you can just say later. And then you can go ahead and make sure it's working. Then I close it because I don't really need to use it at this time. I'm going to go back and run the MySQL installer again to check the requirements. After the installer starts up, I'm sure it's going to tell me that I need Python. In this case, MySQL actually provides a link, so I can click there to install Python, and I will choose Python 3.4.2 because that's based on the MySQL requirements. Now this one also takes a few minutes to download. We'll run it and allow it to download and install. Notice that this time I did not cancel the install for MySQL because it allows you to do it at the same time. And just click Next about 4 times and don't select anything to customize Python, just let it run. Click the Finish button and then return to the MySQL installer. Continue the install by clicking Execute. Finally, we reached the meat and potatoes of your MySQL installation. This is just about every tool that you will use, including the samples in the course. You're going to execute it and let it all run. Once it gets to the very bottom, it will be installing your sample database. And then you can click the next button to move on. Now we're going to do the initial configuration. This is an important step. You're going to configure it with a standard port 3306. It's not a good idea to change any of this. Just let it keep filling in the blanks. Here you create your root password for the MySQL system. Be sure and use a very high-level secure password with special characters, numerics, and uppercase. And be sure and jot this password down because you're going to be using it all of the time in your system. After clicking Next, you'll get the MySQL server configuration. This is the default server that you will be using, so click Next again and let it set up. It will begin configuring on the next page. At this point, you can choose to set up a new user. I kind of like using my own user in addition to the root user so that I can have separate passwords for different uses. So I tend to set these up at this point. Next, we're going to do the initial configuration for the sample database. This is not the database from your textbook. It's from the product online that you just loaded, but it can be useful for testing your MySQL. You can check your password for your root at this point. And you can see now that the startup has been completed and the server's ready. Click Finish and the MySQL workbench will start. Here you can open your local MySQL 5.6 connection by clicking this button. It will ask for your username and password for root. So type that in and click OK. Now, welcome to the MySQL workbench. You'll see 3 databases listed on the left side: Sakala, Test, and World. Under World, there's a tab called City, and that's what we're going to query. Also, you'll notice that Sakala is highlighted in dark. We want to bold World, so we double-click it and make sure that we're pointing to it to do our query. I'm going to type in a simple query for you. Select, and notice that it's in uppercase letters. A star means all, and from, again in uppercase, followed by the column name city that we are going to select from. We're going to limit it to using the limit command, and that limit will be 100 rows. Then I end it with a semicolon. Now we're actually going to execute the query. There are a couple of ways to execute a query. One of them is that you can go to the top and use a drop-down, or you can use the little menu across the top of the query editing area. I kind of like this one. It looks like a lightning bolt. I click it, and there's our list of 100 cities. I can click on one and then scroll all the way to the bottom and see the entire list. Notice that it's not really sorted. That's because I didn't tell it to sort. It's just in the order that they are entered in the database. There are 100 cities. You can also adjust the size of the window, make it larger, smaller. Finally, look down below at your messages from the actual query. It tells me that 100 rows were returned, and that's awesome, because that's just what I wanted to see. So that's your first query, and you were able to make sure that you've set up your MySQL database correctly. I hope you've successfully installed MySQL, and if you did have any kind of error messages, be sure and go out to the MySQL website and look up the installation information, facts, forums, and if need be, contact MySQL support. Good luck and happy querying!